Hey everybody, it's Mark from MT.TrainRestorations again. Back at you with a new project. Don't know how many folks out there have one of these Lionel rapid transit trolley cars. They're pretty cool. They have bumpers. They fit between a couple bumpers or whatever you want to set up to shift this back and forth. It makes the little propeller go on top there, the little antenna. This one here runs, it's a real growler, goes slow, even at almost full power. It just runs real slow. It does shift, which is great, but again, the light blinks real bad. It just needs a good cleaning probably. I can see there's a bunch of hair stuck all over it, so on and so forth. So today we're going to do a quick little clean job on it there, see what's going on, check out the gears, make sure everything's in order. So first thing we do, let's pop this off. We'll get that back on after a while. This comes off. Now the way these come off, what I'm going to do first, I'm going to take this apart. It's easier to take the roof off without cracking, and I'll show you what happens, so you don't make the mistake of trying to pull the roof off. It kind of snaps in place, but what happens is there's two little plastic arms that hold the roof on. They need to be spread out to release the roof. You can do it with a finger, you could do it with a wide screwdriver. Put it in there, kind of turn it a little bit, and it'll release the roof. You see how these work? If you just put a screwdriver from underneath and pry them open a little bit, that'll save these breaking off. I have a few that are missing these, so you have to be really cautious of those. So the roof has been really faded. I actually have another roof, a new roof. You can see the difference in the colors. So this one's really faded, but it's in good shape. I mean, it's not cracked or anything, and this needs cleaned. We'll wash it later. Wash it, I should say, or wash it, if it depends on what part of the country you're from. These come out. These aren't in too bad a shape. They need cleaned. Little people. Got the front windows. This one is really in good shape. Usually the body has cracks somewhere, and the graphics are gone or wore off or whatever, but this one's in really good shape, which I like. So we'll clean it, and then we'll put it back together afterwards. Like I said, this slide actually rotates this little shaft right here, and that's what makes the operating antenna there that work. Would normally rub up against a power line. In real life, this would rub on a power line overhead and operate the trolley around town. So pretty clever what Lionel did. The light does work, even though it's kind of smoked and black inside. We'll change the bulbs out. The light socket's a little bit loose. So with all that said, I'm going to put some rubber gloves on, because these get awful greasy, awful dirty, and I'm going to try to degrease a lot of it. So I have several bruises on my hands and my fingers, cuts, and the degreaser that I put in here does burn, so I'm going to try to eliminate some of that and put these gloves on. I probably should get in the habit of wearing these more often, but anyway, I know they're kind of a nuisance sometimes to work with, but they do save your fingers and your hands some. So anyway, back to taking this apart. This looks familiar probably to some of you folks. It's a gang car, the gang car that is out there. You see how that looks? Happen to have one sitting on my track. It needs kind of work too, but they use the same piece, which is cool. Whatever works. You don't see it, so that's what Lionel is using. Makes sense. It's the same kind of frame and armature motor assembly that the gang car has, and it does the same thing. When it bumps back and forth, it spins the little man, like you have here. This shaft spins the little guy, which makes the bumpers go back and forth. So this is the same principle, and this spins the operating antenna on the roof there. So pretty cool. They came up with this trolley car with the technology from the gang car. So, oh yeah, you can see the armature's pretty black. You take the brushes out. They're pretty dirty. The inside of the brush plate is dirty. Take this out. It's pretty gummed up. I can tell already by pulling on it. The grease that's down in there, even though it still seems like grease, appears to be grease, it is starting to firm up, and it's gumming up this worm drive, and I'm sure the drive gear on the axle is pretty gummy. So with all that said, now that this is off, a couple things that we also need to take off. I'm going to take the light loose because that also loosens the plate, the contact plate. So we'll take that off. I do have a little parts bin here, just a little place to save the parts where we don't get them mixed up with everything else I have on my table. And we'll give this a good cleaning. We'll put the screw from the light in here, put that over there for now. The washer, you can see the washer has disintegrated. They have a washer under there. I'm not sure why, because they're attaching over top of the insulator plate, so it doesn't really need an insulated washer under it, but they did. I probably have some more. I can put one back, but it's really not needed on this one. So we'll see what happens. So with that, what this does, now I'm going to pull this through because it needs cleaned real bad. You can see the grease kind of gummed up on it too. We'll clean all these things off here really good. Reach over and get my rag here a little bit. Keep my gloves somewhat clean. But this is what makes the contact. It's barely visible right now, but underneath all this black grease is two little contactors. So when this slides back and forth, this little piece right here, it's spring loaded. See that grease here is almost already petrified. This grease will interfere somewhat with the contact, so we want to make sure these are clean. So we'll get to that, but this sliding back and forth hits one or the other copper contactors. Get that off of there. You can see a little bit better. So this slides back and forth and makes contact with either the forward or the backward contactor, and that's what makes it go back and forth. So with that said, we'll continue on. Now, I don't take these apart. No need to take that apart, but what I am going to do, I have a little teeny wrench in here. These two, the ones that are threaded, are also threaded, which hold the field coil to the frame. So you don't have to do this all. I mean, this isn't part of the routine maintenance necessarily, but the way this is pretty gummed up, and we want to take it apart and give it a pretty good cleaning. So I want to get under here and get this off, get it out. We don't want to mangle it up, so we just want to work it slowly. but it will come off. It's supposed to. I've taken them off many times, but there's a pin on the bottom and that holds it in place, and we just want to make sure we get it loose evenly. We don't want to bend anything or break anything. But okay, it's going to be a little stubborn. There we go. It was kind of really stuck in there, but we'll make sure that it don't happen again. You can see these little pegs go into the holes. So now this mechanism is sort of all connected to the wire. I could take that off if we want. We can solder it back on later, but we'll see how far we get with it all connected and kind of hanging there. I can work with it off to the side. Hopefully you can see all that. Get some of these things out of the way. But so again, this is the part slides back and forth. Now that we got these out, we should be able to get this up out of there. We're going to take that off, set that aside, because that's pretty dirty, needs a lot of help. So back to what we have inside here. So you can see, like I said, that's like, it's like, I don't know even to say, it's like toothpaste. So obviously it's not doing the lubrication job it's supposed to be doing. So we're going to clean all that out of here and get back to clean so we can see what we have. So instead of watching me do all that, I'm going to give you a break from that. I'm going to clean this up and we'll come back to this spot when it's clean, and I'll let you know what we find and we'll go from there. Be back in a minute. Okay, here we are back. I did a pretty decent cleaning with the degreaser. Now we at least see what we have. This little contactor actually, the way it's shaped, it rubs on the axle. It rubs on this axle as it spins. That's where we get our ground from. And then the roller assembly obviously is where we get power, which is attached to, well, this is kind of not really attached, but this wire is what goes up and ties back into the plate. I did cut it off to kind of get this out of my way, so we're going to take this off. Now, like I said, under routine maintenance, you probably don't have to go to this extreme to take a lot apart, but this is an opportunity that we can show you what we see and what we get once this is taken apart. So we'll get this off of here. So it's even some grease under there, and there we go. We get that out of there. So we can clean this a little bit more now without some of the other things in the way. But as you can see, we have grease here we really don't need to have under there. And there's still grease along the gear, which we can get out of there for now. I mean, it's pretty saturated in there with cleaner, so it's breaking it down. But what I like to do, I think part of the growling noises comes from the two gears meshing together. Some of this hard grease is in between the teeth, so my routine is usually when I get these, find them in the condition they're in. Same with the gang cars. Anything that has, you know, switchers have these. Anything with a brass gear on the axle, if it sits long enough somewhere in an unconditioned space, the grease in there really turns to tar, then the next step, it will turn almost to a rock. I've had wheels you could not turn no matter what you did on items until you took it apart and got it to this stage. And it was hard to even pull the worm drive up out of there because of that. They just stuck together almost like a piece of wood. So, like I said, I'm gonna do some more. I'm gonna spray this up a little bit. Give me a minute with some of my spray. I use electronic and motor type of electronic cleaner. Works really good, and it evaporates, so it doesn't really linger very long. I put a lot in to get it out, to wash it and spray it out, but you can see at least the gear is getting somewhat clean. You can see silver again, but as I said, in between these teeth there's a lot of hardened grease that is needs to really be taken out, and it's a time-consuming little process, but just do what I'm doing. Use something small, sharp. You don't need to press real hard to get it out. You can also use, I have a couple dental tools. I have this straight point, pointy one. It works well as well. Get in there and get that out of there, and so on. And if you get it all kind of loose, soon when you spray it one more time with the degreaser, or use rubbing alcohol or whatever you want to do to dissipate the grease, rinse it out real good, and then like I said, there's old grease around the sides. You want that to run really free. With all that said, now let's get back to what we got. So this, it's got grease on it. We'll get that off of here. Clean this up a little bit as well. Like I said, once we have all this apart, we might as well clean it the best we can. We don't want to take the bend out of it or mangle it up at all. We want to keep it in the shape it's meant to be in, because like I said, it does ride on that axle, and this does have a rubber or fiber washer on it, because we do want to break the contact from this as we put it back together. So we can do that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to clean this even a little bit better, because I'm that way. You can use a little steel wool if you have some. I'm sure everybody has a little bit of that around somewhere. Or you can use your Dremel tool. I do both. Sometimes I can't get the steel wool in the places I want, so I use my Dremel, but I have a little piece of steel wool sitting right here. Probably can't see well what I'm doing, but I'm just taking all the black off. The better the contact, the cleaner the copper, the better the contact is going to be. So, and like I said, the bend is made so that hits. We'll just drop this in there for now, because that's what picks up this later. So what we're going to do now is see what we got here. I think everybody can see this pretty good. I don't know, the copper wire just seems to be looped in there. So I'm going to replace this since it's loose. I'm going to take this out, put a little bit longer of a wire in there. I'm going to clean this up some more as well while we have the opportunity. This definitely is a Dremel tool type of thing to do. Or you can, you know, if you're careful enough, you can do it on a bench wheel. I've done both, but we're just going to clean this up a little bit while we have it out. It's much easier. There's a little bit of rust starting, but you get to clean the roller up. Get all the little scarring off of there from the sparks. It does arc. You get the arcing from the power track, and it will pit These get pitted, but this one's in pretty good shape. Now we want to get a wire on this, so what we're going to do, I just happen to have some wire. Always happen to have some wire around. There's a nice little piece. It's long enough for sure. So we're going to see if we got a little hole ready to go. Pull this back a little bit, pull the insulation back. Let's see, we got a little bit of solder on there. Let's see if it's any good. You'll know if my glove starts to melt on my finger that I'm not doing it right. And I'm burning myself, but it happens. It looks like the solder is working okay. We want to make sure the wire gets hot enough as well for the solder to stick to it. It looks like we got a bite, but I want to make sure here. Okay. So we're going to trim this up a little bit here. And let's see here. Okay. So we'll take care of that in when we go to put it back. So what we want to do is this goes on a certain way. The wire goes back up through, as you can see, and then let's see if we can hit the hole in the roller assembly with the screw. We want to make sure we get it in there. We don't want to strip it or anything. We want to get it in there right. So there we go. There, just snug it up. Don't have to torque it down like you're working on a V8 motor. Trim off some of these hair here at my trusty trimmer. Get rid of this stuff, excess fuzz. Oh, one more stubborn one anyway. Let's get that out of the way too. Okay, so that'll be ready to go. So it's much cleaner. I think that'll take care of a lot of the growling that we had. I think I got just about every tooth in there. I'm going to take another quick look here just to make sure. Make sure we got everything out of there that we wanted to get out of there. Because like I said, for normal maintenance, you probably would not take all this apart like you do, but if you get one of these and it goes real slow and it growls a lot, this is probably why. Because some of that stuff, you know, you'll get little pieces of metal shavings in there over the years, dirt, stones, rocks, all hair, all kind of nasty things get in here, and the grease actually makes it sticky enough it forms a bond, and then you end up having a gumball with dirt in it inside your gears, so that's a problem. So like I said, I think it's pretty clean, pretty good shape. So what we want to do now is we want to, before we slide all this other stuff back together, we want to clean it up a little bit. The shaft now needs a needs a little bit of help. We'll put new grease on all these things before we button it all down, but again, some of this stuff is a little bit too thick and it's too gummed up. Actually, there's hairs wrapped around this thing. So what we want to do, let me spray it with my degreaser real quick. Get a lot of that loosened up where I can brush it off with my toothbrush. Actually, it's not my toothbrush. That's my wife's toothbrush, but she don't know. She won't notice. I'll put it back before she gets home, but I'll get that cleaned off for a little bit, and I think we'll be pretty good shape. Let's see here, yeah. Wipe this off with a paper towel. I mean, being a little greasy is kind of what we want anyway, but like I said, we'll put new lube on that when we start putting it all back together. I'm gonna get another paper towel. I have a feeling I'm gonna need it. So we got that pretty clean. Got this part pretty clean. Again, this should not have all this goo on it. You can see what kind of a mess we're getting here from that. From these things, they do get messy. Get me some more Q-tips, or cotton buds as they say down under. And I'm going to put a little bit of alcohol on this one. I'm break that up with some alcohol, and I don't need to use the degreaser on it too much. I think we'll get it pretty clean with a little bit of alcohol and a Q-tip. Get all that off of there, then we'll dry it up and go from there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So this got a little gummy. Do the same thing, try to get the alcohol just to break it loose, or I can wipe it off. We'll clean this up a little bit more once I remount it. It'll make it easier to clean the top parts after it's mounted. So now we want to get in here and cut this off. And get some more alcohol here, and we're going to clean the brush plate out a little bit. Get all that black soot from the brushes, all that powder that they expel as they go around. We'll get down in there and get this as clean as we can. Not that it, you know, cleaner makes it run any better, but electrical contactors, yeah, we want to keep those as clean as we can to make good contact, but the plastic doesn't matter too much. So take a little bit of cotton bud off, pull some of that off. Look how black it is inside there. Get them as clean as we can in there. I'll pull a little bit of this off. Get that back down in there, and that's getting a lot of clean, lot cleaner now. Yeah. Okay, so that's in pretty good shape. That's pretty good shape. Oh boy, this. So back to this thing. We want to get this off of here. Looks like what I'm going to need to do. This one here is a little bit rusty. I can get this off. Well, this one's really on there. I've never seen them that tight on there before, but it's always the first time for everything. There we go. Okay, so we got these off. You can see this one's pretty rusty. I'm gonna do these up on the wire wheel, and then I will paint them and put them back in shape. Now you can see what we have here, another gooey mess. So I'm going to shoot a little bit of grease on here, degreaser, just to break that off, to loosen it. I'll use Put a trusty toothbrush on it to get most of that off here real quick. Right into my trash can. And we'll take a look at it and see what's next to be done here. We can get that as clean as we can, because it is pretty gummed up. Get some of this here. Wipe it off here. Like I said, we are going to be greasing this up somewhat again anyway, but we want to get as much as the old gummy stuff off of it as we can, and there is a lot of that. Whoever had this last must have worked at the lube factory and like to use it. This doesn't normally need this much grease, especially in these locations to work. You can see this is pretty hard here. Got some hairs around it and so on, and underneath here we got some junk under here. Again, this is a good place for the X-Acto knife to get underneath. Look at that stuff coming out of there. Like I said, it's not going to hurt the operation to have some of that under there. But like I said, once you have it apart like you do, you might as well get it as squeaky clean as we can while we have the opportunity. You know, how do you tell somebody, oh, I took it all apart and cleaned it, when you didn't get it all? But we're getting 99% of it, I think. And we'll get this thing here back together a lot quicker than it did coming apart. And we'll try it out. I do have a short video of it prior to doing this to it, just to see how it ran. So what I'll do, I'll put that at the back end of my video here, and we'll put the video in behind it of it running after it's clean. We'll see what the difference is. Yeah. Okay, so again, this piece of copper, I'm going to clean it a little bit with some steel wool, because it does make contact. It is going to make contact with a couple contactors, copper contactors. That's what makes it work. So we can get it as clean as we can. I'm going to set this back here for a minute. See if we can get this a little bit cleaner on top here. Get it a little shiny. Now that I've been pressing down on it, I'm going to lift it up a little bit, because we want to make sure it's springing up tight enough to rub on the bottom of these little copper balls right there, because that's what makes it run. You can see how gummed up that front bumper is, and we'll just clean that up a little bit. Just enough to call it clean. Get some back in here. Looks like a good spot to use the Dremel just around this a little bit. Okay, so back to these parts. Now that we have this and that, okay, so we got that soldered on, got this wire. There's a little notch right there, you can see, maybe. I don't know if you can see it. It's a little notch in the frame. Wire sits in there, and just kind of pull that down out of the way for the time being. And what we want to do next is we want to get this stuff put together. And remember, this is going to be riding. So you can see it's a little, so the spring-loaded piece underneath there works well. This goes back and forth. It's going to drive our little post As it goes back and forth, it's going to spin. So what holds that down is everything else. So what we're going to do is put this back in. I put a little bit of lube, a little bit of oil on the peg holes. If you remember, it was a little difficult getting it out before. So what we want to do is put this on now. Get those lined up. There. That went in a lot easier than it came out. This will obviously gonna spin this around here a little bit. There. Okay. Make sure that that is back in its place in the right location. There. Just move that aside. And then we have to put our little rod up through here. Okay, then we can stand this up. There. That'll hold it for the time being. So then we have to connect wires again. We'll do that in a minute. And we have our light fixture, so on and so forth. Get this back on the grease. Okay, so now we're going to drop this back in. Again, I put a little bit of grease on the armature. I put a little bit of grease down in the bushing, down in the hole there. There. We want to make sure it's down all the way where it belongs. And we'll get the brushes back in. But we're going to make sure the studs are in. I put a little oil on the threads. We want to get those pegs down where they belong, and we want to just snug them up. They don't have to be torqued down to the point where they don't, you know, like I said, we're not tightening a head of a V8 engine here. There's no torque specification. Hand tight is good. And then we're going to put the brushes in. Slide those back in after we clean them up. Whoop. Alright, so they're dangling, ready to go. We're going to try to put this together. Get the armature through the hole. There. Okay. So now I'm going to put these screws in just enough to snug it up to hold it in place while we do the rest of the connecting. That'll hold that together. Put one on this side because the brushes are spring loaded. We don't want them shooting all over the place. Pushing it will push that plastic cap right off. Alright, so those are snugged up. This is in place. So next thing what we want to do, we want to take care of now. We could probably, let's do the wire first. Alright, so let's see if we can get back to where we were. All right, so we got our power back, got our light back. The light goes like that. Like I said, I do have, what I do with them? I do have fiber washers. Like I said, I don't think I need one on here, but What the heck? Oh, 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 oh. Okay. So that's back down. Put the screw in over here. Hold this plate. Just snug it down. Okay, so with all that said, we should be set to go. So what we want to do is put the rest together. Like I said, I will do that. I want to clean up some parts here, and we'll wash it up. I'm going to clean these bumpers, put those back on, and we'll be back and we'll show you how that all looks once it's all put back together and clean. And we'll do a test run on the track, and I think we call this one about done. I'll do a little cleaning here, a little housekeeping on top of the plate before we put it all together. But I'll do that. I won't bore you with all that stuff. We'll be back soon. This is Mark from MT Restorations. Stick with me. I'll be back. Bye. Okay, I'm back. And what we want to do, I cleaned this up a little bit. If you remember, the bumpers were rusted. I hit them on the wire wheel on my bench grinder and snapped those back on. I put a little oil just on the shelf where these glides go back and forth. Just a teeny drop is all we need. You don't have to put that grease on there all the time. It just builds up. I'd use a little bit of lube, just a drop or so. It just keeps it moving. That's all you need. We cleaned up the body and the chassis. So we got the body, the roof, the chassis cleaned up pretty well. What we want to do is put the windows back in, and they fit in a certain way. They're not too hard to figure out. They slide down in. There's a little groove, both sides. So we just slide that right down in there, and they tuck in the corner. Same with the little front and rear windshield. They slide right back down in there. I just cleaned them off with some soap and water. They're original ones, at least, well, the ones that were in it when I got it. So, and like I said, it cleaned up nicely. I can't complain for the age of this thing. So then the roof came out really nice. The reflector is still intact. A lot of roofs don't even have the reflector anymore. But that's to reflect the light from the bulb, kind of spread it out. So with that said, make sure the roof's facing the right way. Goes back away. We want this stud to come through. So I had it on backwards right off the bat. Talking too much while I'm working. Line up the hole with the hole. Bring that through. Body fits on it fairly snug. And put the screw in next. That'll hold it while we're finishing it up. And just snug it. So the only thing left is to put this on. So I'm just going to find my little piece of steel wool. Here it is. And I'm just going to clean that a little bit. Just enough to get her to shine like it used to. It's a little bent, but it's got character, right? I do have some new ones of these. I have some spare parts. I bought, a month or two ago. I've probably worked on, I don't know, maybe a half dozen of these, 7 or 8 maybe, I'm not sure. I've fixed over the last several months. So I've been buying some parts, some replacement parts, just in case. This one really didn't need anything. It had everything in pretty good shape. Now the trick to these is no big trick, but you want to put this on, and you want it to go in the right direction. With the bumper in, you want to, that's the way this should turn. So we want to do that. So this kind of tucks inside the hole. This little stem just goes right inside the hole. And then just press it on. Press it onto the stick. There's a little slot there. Press it onto the stick. And push it down into the car, like so, till you get it snug. I just want to make sure I got that stud down in there far enough, the wire. Yeah. So when you hit this, it swings around for the direction. You can see it's not a perfect science, but for the most part, it's going to go this way. So this goes that way. When it does that, this goes that way. Now you can fine tune it, but like I said, it's going to have a mind of its own to some degree. So anyway, looks like it's ready for track. This I got my greasy fingers. So I took my gloves off, see? And now that I took my gloves off, my fingers got grease on, and I'm getting grease on the thing we just cleaned up. So I'm going to prepare us to put this on the track, so bear with me. I'll get the camera all set up and we'll go from there. Give me a minute, I'll be right back. Looks like lightning going off inside the car. Well, we're going to have to see if we can fix that. Kind of growly. And the power's up almost all the way. That don't seem to matter. Well, let's fix it up and see what happens. Okay, here we go. Our little test run on our trolley. See what happens. Very nice. I think it runs a lot quieter and better. Got a little grind to it. Not too bad. Light works great. Looks good. Works. I like it. For 50 years old or more, can't beat that. So, I think a successful project. Check that out and come back another time.